Would you like to make your field crews more efficient? That's a dumb question, right? The answer is yes, because the more efficient they are, then the more money you make. Welcome to Construction Genius. My guest today is Oded Ran. He is the co-founder and CEO at Clue Insights. And he is obsessed with helping construction companies improve productivity using data and AI. Tracking productivity is costly and retroactive. And what you need to be able to do is to get great data from the field, interpret that data, and then feed it back to the field so that you can empower the field to do what they need to do to improve efficiency. And that's what we talk about here today on the podcast. Now, what's really interesting about this is that Oded is going to give you some insights into what you need to look for when you're using technology in an effective way in your organization. And I want you to listen to that very carefully because it can help you regardless of the technology solution that you're thinking about implementing. We have a variety of different links in the show notes to the information that we talk about. And halfway through the show, we actually show a slide that is very, very useful. And so if you're listening to this on audio, you may want to check out the video version for that slide. Regardless, though, there's going to be some stuff in the show notes that'll be helpful to give you more insight into what we're talking about here today. And of course, if you find this interview useful, please share it with other people. Give us a rating or a review wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you for listening to Construction Genius today. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Oded, welcome to Construction Genius.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here, Eric.
Okay, so construction industry. We know that there are a variety of problems that plague contractors that impact profitability. Some of those problems seem to have been with us for a while. In your experience working with contractors, give me the biggest problem that you see on a consistent basis.
The biggest problem that we see is that even though each company is slightly different from another, within a company, they do the same work repetitively. And yet, they're not seeing any improvements year after year, decade after decade. To have an industry that has repetitive nature with very little improvement is quite unique, and that's a big problem.
So I'm reminded of that. The alleged quote from Einstein, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So then let's talk about that. We all know that construction is repetitive. Depending what industry you're in, you're doing the same tasks typically again and again and again. Why is it that there isn't any improvement?
Well, if you look at most things we do in life, it is extremely hard to improve on something unless you measure it in some way, debrief or research, and then optimize.
Right.
So by merely, let's say, if I was running day after day after day, and then thinking because of that I will break a record, but I don't ever measure my time or do much and debrief what I'm doing and comparing, then I will be unlikely to get any better. Yeah. And the construction industry, strangely enough, if you look in the US, is pretty much one of the only industries, if not the only industry, that has not improved in the last 50 years, whether it's transportation, healthcare, commerce. The improvements that we've seen in the last 20 years with the advent of internet and mobile computing and whatnot has seen significant improvements in productivity and profitability. And in construction, we have not yet seen it.
Okay. So let's start with the measure portion. Why is it that construction companies struggle to accurately measure what they're doing?
Well, first, it is important to say it's not their fault. So it is a very complex industry, and everyone who's been in the industry and is in love with the industry knows that it is a highly complex industry. It is not the same as, let's say, manufacturing or even in mining, where you have a standardized day after day ability to do the same thing again and again. So let's first put that on the table. At the same time, if I right now am a construction company and I own, for example, hundreds of different pieces of heavy assets, my data and all the information resides either in people's brains because it's never been digitized, or if it is digitized, it resides in multiple different systems, not talking to one another. So imagine you had a human body where the eyes don't talk to the ears and the left hand does not talk to the right hand and so on. And then you'd expect that organism to operate effectively. That doesn't work. Within construction companies, for example, you have sometimes literally a divide between the equipment folks and the operations folks. And the operation folks might be on one set of systems, not really connected to what the equipment folks work. And that's just one example of many, many. So the fact that there is no connectivity within companies, let alone between companies, really makes this task extremely hard and extremely challenging.
Interesting. So the data is in people's brains, or it's in different systems, and the communication of that data, even within a company, is inefficient.
That's right. And what's the proof? You find like a 60-year-old four-person leaving the job, and all of a sudden the company cries about the loss of all the data and knowledge that existed when that person left. Is no longer a project manager. And when she, for example, turns to a new job, and all of a sudden we're saying, oh, why are we not able to get this job site to be as efficient? Because the knowledge and all the information actually did sit in the computer. It just happened to be a human computer. And the organization as a whole has not been able to use that. And that's fine when it's a small self-owned company, a company of 20 to 50 people, and you can do that. But as an organization grow and might have 50, 100, 5,000 people, you have to come up with processes and operations so that knowledge improves in the organization. And more often than not, organizations get to the stage and they fail. Now, the interesting bit to say is that lots of what I'm describing now is actually, I need to make it more accurate, because that's a picture of 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, people were saying what I'm saying now. Basically, they were saying, we need data. The good news is that 10 years passed, and many companies, virtually every company we speak with at Clue, has data. The problem of this decade is not we need data, is what the hell do we do with this data? And we come across company after company that says, we've got the data. And yet, when we ask them, have you improved your on-time performance? Has the amount of money you spend on equipment breakdown gone down? Have you improved your profitability on job sites and earth-moving projects? And the answer is no. Why? Because it's not enough to have data. That's a prerequisite. That's like having a heartbeat. Yeah, you need a heartbeat in order to run. Pretty hard to run without a heartbeat, isn't it? Right? But the fact that you have a heartbeat doesn't mean you know how to run yet. Now you need to know how to use the data, how to get the blood flowing, how to get the data flowing to the right people so they do something useful with it in real time. Because construction is in real time, in the field. And that's the challenge that we're working on. That's a challenge that I call it the 2021 challenge. Not having data, doing something useful with it. Effectively and in real time.
Now, does that lead us then to that the idea of once you've measured it and you have the data, then debriefing it so that you can understand it?
That's right. And again, you can debrief it, but who does that? Is it being done by you just hiring a person and you have another person doing it? As the company grows, it has so many data points, and we do have an invention called the computer that's pretty good at analyzing multiple data points and finding anomalies, irregularities, things that you wants to look at. So that process of how do you find the issues, how do you flag them, how do you create actionable insights is something that computer algorithms have started to become extremely efficient in.
Okay, so you've got the data, and you are you're debriefing, you're analyzing it, and from that, you're going to debrief it. In your experience, how do the most effective construction companies go through that debriefing process? Tell me more about that.
So it's a combination of two main things. First, the preparation, the preliminary stages of digitizing the data, cleaning it, putting it in one place. When I'm saying one place, I mean virtually, basically one system that can get all the data that's clean and correct. And these preliminaries sometimes may take a company 10 years to achieve. So that's stage number one, okay?
Yep.
And for anyone who's not IT heavy and they're listening to this podcast, I can simplify it. Data pipes are not much different from sewage pipes. They need to be connected and kept and maintained and cleaned. Okay, and that's what software companies, those who know how to do it, can do. So that's the preliminary stage. Then the second stage is then use it effectively. And using it effectively for some companies mean I want to get a weekly report. And the report could be, for example, on my utilization rate and many other aspects. More often than not, we found as a young company that that's not enough because companies are drowning in emails and reports.
Yes.
So we took a different approach. Our approach has been, we will go straight to the end user, the end person, the operator or the foreperson or the project manager that needs to do something about it. And then we're going to tell them right there and then what is the actionable thing we want them to do. Because if you just have insights and debrief, but there's no action against it, what good is that? You just provided more noise. So working with construction companies, we ask them, okay, let's say you knew that data. What is the action required? For example, let's give a very concrete example. You have a company that owns 15 mid-weight excavators.
Right.
And then noticing the utilization is actually not where it needs to be. Okay, that's just a report. What is the actionable item? That could be, hey, stop renting that asset, return it now. We can have that data and do that. It could be, how about you move that mid-side excavator from this job site in which it was sitting idle for 6 days, not doing anything, to that job site that requires it and put in a request. Okay, so all of these things can be automated and suggested through smart algorithms and actionable insights. So that is the debriefing. The debriefing is coupled with an analysis and specific insight. Not more noise in the ear, because the folks we work with, they're working very hard. They don't have time for just more emails.
So I want to take you back a little bit. I think the analogy is apt in terms of the data pipes being connected, maintained, and cleaned. But let's talk about the stuff that's flowing through the pipes. How can we make sure it is good quality information? Because I think that's one of the big, you've got manual reporting or you've got surveys or whatever, and that process is inaccurate and cumbersome. How do I make the collecting of the data as painless as possible for those people who are giving me the data?
Yeah. So first, you automate whatever you can automate. So we work with machine data a lot, right? Heavy construction equipment. Mm-hmm. And the best and most accurate way to get data from heavy construction equipment is through the telematics system built by the OEM. So Caterpillar has Caterpillar and VisionLink, and John Deere has JD Link, and so on. And anyone who's listening to it and into equipment knows these systems. Right. And that is the best way to get the data. Small problem, the standard in which they send the data is not really standard. And that's where companies like us come in, and we standardize the standard. Basically, we connect the pipes. So if you own a multi OEM fleet, truly the data is correct. And that is an extremely laborious and very technical conversation that we're not going to have now. Okay. But the important bit of that is that it needs to be automated so that an operator and no one needs to be involved in that once that's done correctly. Okay. Then you end up with data that is human entered. For example, the equipment just broke down. The most important thing the companies want to know is that a piece of equipment just broke down. But guess what? When it breaks down, you're not going to know the machine is dead. It's not going to send you the data, right? There's no heartbeat.
Right.
How do you get that? You need an operator. The way that we've taken is that the reason I believe personally that data sometimes is entered incorrectly is because the tool that we asked the construction employee to use to enter the data was not the best tool for the job. Right. Pen and paper is a pretty good tool. You take it in the right hand or the left hand if you're a lefty, and you take a piece of paper and you write it. Pretty efficient tool. And yet, for some reason, the construction industry has agreed in the last 20 years to use many systems that I can only gently describe them as suboptimal.
Right.
They're hard to use. They take too time to use. And the operators, more often than not, just had enough.
Give me an example of one of those systems.
No, definitely not. Because, I'm sure every system out there that was built with the best intent, right?
Sure.
So I don't blame. But, we are now used to, all of us, we all use mobile phones. We use Google Maps. We use Instagram or Twitter. When was the last time, Eric, you called the CEO of Google to ask them how to use their Google Maps app?
Right.
Have you ever done that?
Never.
Never, right? Why?
Because you won't take my call.
Right. But also because it's something called user experience. The user experience is so good that you're like, well, it's self-explanatory. You need to have a couple of brain cells and eyesight, and you can figure it out. So we really focus on creating tools that are easy for someone to use with zero training. If it doesn't pass the zero training, we try not to put these out. So if you have the right tool for the job, it works. How many of us ever took a remote control that we're like, how the hell do I operate that?
Right.
For some reason, 1 billion people claim that the Netflix is very easy to use. So probably Netflix figured something out in the user experience. User experience is something that software people speak about a lot. When it comes to industry and user, you just need to basically to think about one thing. Do I need to be trained on this, or can I just pick it up and figure it out?
Okay. So that's a good framework right there. So are you saying then that if I'm running a construction company, or if I'm responsible for the operations of the company, and I'm thinking about technology implementation or just process improvement, and I'm thinking about bringing in a technology piece, I should be able to ask myself, is this easy to use with zero training? Am I hearing that right?
You have to ask that. You have 3 questions you need to ask in 2021. First one is the zero training? Yes. And everyone's going to tell you zero training. Nothing is zero training. You'll spend weeks just speaking with a company and evaluating. I get that. But how minimal is the training? Can you literally give it to someone and a day later ask them how easy it is? Or not even a day later, 5 minutes later. Super important. Okay. Second question is, and I'm going in reverse order here.
Sure.
And that is it zero implementation? And that's something that's quite new, and I think it will pick up in the enterprise world. Enterprise world is the world of software being sold to large organizations. And many companies are used now to have every process. You tell them about installing a new technology. It takes them longer than it takes an elephant to give birth, which is 20 months, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, this is nuts. Can you try a piece of software in a matter of a week or two? Is there a way for you to pilot it, test it with real data without an effort? Now, some of the people listening might scratch their head and say, what the hell is he talking about? How can you do that in an accounting system? Let me tell you a secret. There are systems out there that can do that for you. Seriously. Why? Because they use APIs, they use the latest technologies to connect to existing data, and they do the work for you. Okay. So that's zero training 1, zero implementation is 2. The third thing is the most important thing, is whatever system you use. I don't care if you don't even hear about Clue and our website, Get Clue. Whatever system you use, make sure you can get in and you can get out. What do I mean by that? That every single piece of data that you put in the system, you can in a snap take it out, whether it's through what we call an API, a software interface, or straight from the database. And whether any data you want to put in, for example, you want to connect it to other systems, you can do that as well. Okay. In the software game,
hold on. Yeah. Give me an example of the get in, get out from construction. Give me an example.
Super simple example. We work with construction companies that connect their entire fleet data. We don't want to hold them hostage. So if they tell us, hey, can you export from me the entire data, of every asset location, utilization, idling, fuel consumption, inspection, diagnostic code, work orders, whatever. Can you give that to me, or are you going to tell me, here's the bill to do that? Or no, you cannot. I want to keep you as my customer hostage for the next 50 years in a Catholic wedding.
Yeah, right.
Even Catholics, I think, can divorce, right? I don't know that for sure. I think so. I digress. But
from the beginning, it was not so.
Right. But for some reason, we agreed in software. We ask companies today about the ERP system. Hey, can you get data into your ERP system for free, easily? And the answer is often no.
Mm-hmm.
Who's working from home here? So that is that perspective. Then there's a different question. Sometimes you have a system like ours. We can perform as an end-to-end maintenance solution with all the work orders and PM and inspections and whatnot. But some companies wish to use other tools. So do you allow me to connect all the things to it? Do I have the right to use the software in the way I want to use it?
Okay. So this is very interesting. You're setting the bar very high here.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, you're offering the prospect to people that technology implementation and usage can be a lot less painful than it is currently for most construction companies.
It is in every single industry almost, but the construction industry. It really is. We have not invented anything new. I'm just parroting what people said before me 10 and 20 years.
Sure.
It just happens to be that no one decided, for reasons I do not know, to really take this full on for the construction industry, which we have a great admiration for and love for. So we decided this is not right. We can help here for companies.
So let's just dive into let's narrow the conversation a little bit in terms of what Clue does. You guys focus on the heavy civil market, and that's worldwide $1.5 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
I love heavy civil. I have clients in heavy civil. Dude, I just love it. So tell me a little bit more about what it is that you guys do.
So we help companies improve their operations using the collection and use of data. So what does it mean? If you are, for example, a construction company that is, let's say, a paving company or highway construction companies, you own and operate hundreds of assets. They have repetitive nature. Yes, every project might be a bit different, but a mile of road is a mile of road, and you need to collect all the data and use it effectively in order to increase your margin on projects and ensure they're on time, in order to decrease your costs, whether that is because of breakdowns, high idling, fuel consumption, and other uncertainties. What we do with companies is we collect and consolidate the entire aspect of their operations, their fleet operations, into a single system by connecting their existing systems wherever we can. So they've got their own existing telematic solutions from every single OEM. After we connected, we became one of the world's largest consolidators of basically what we call OEM data. OEM data means the telematic systems of these manufacturers. When we finished that, we then said we're going to add and connect all the on-road GPS systems of pretty much every company out there in the US. That includes Samsara and Geotab and Verizon Connect and others, so that as a project manager, I can know in every given moment where is everyone, whether it's a pickup truck or a dump truck or an excavator or whatnot. And then when we finished that, we said we're going to work with other companies that already exist and integrate their platforms to help companies, for example, manage aspects of the maintenance. So we integrated, for example, the systems of HCSS E360 and Heavy Job, what we needed, because the end user, the operator, truly could not care less about your technology.
Yeah.
He cares or she cares about getting the job done in the most efficient way. So we built our system. The customer once explained to me how we built it. He said, you know what, you built it in reverse. I said, what do you mean we built it in reverse? He explained to me, every company I worked with first tell me what they do, and then they give me reports, and then they give me dashboards, and then they gave me a mobile app that is not very usable with their data. And he said to me, you're the only company that works in reverse. you go to the operator and say, what does the operator need to know? Well, she needs to know where is the asset, is there any PM due, any alerts, any diagnostic codes, is it idling, and so on. And you get that data to that person on a tool that they can use on the phone anywhere. And I said, well, thank you for the explanation. And since then, I started using it to explain to people, what do we do in reverse? We think from the end user first. The rest is truly our responsibility and headache to solve for you.
Yeah, it's really neat when your customers tell you what you're actually doing, and it helps you, huh?
Everything we've learned was from our customers.
No, I get that. So I know you have a slide that you want to share with us just to kind of illustrate it. And for those of you listening along, you might want to check out the video of the podcast. But for those of you watching the video now, you can take a look at this. So I've made you the host, Oded. If you could share that with us, I'd appreciate it.
Beautiful. So we will navigate 1 second how to share this on Zoom. Let's see. Share screen.
Okay, so there it is. We got it. Okay, hit it. Go for it.
Yeah. So I'll explain what we're looking at here. One of the things really exciting is working with companies that do heavy earth moving projects. Projects. That could be linear with scrapers, and that could be just moving millions, if not tens of millions of cubes of dirt. Mm-hmm. Now, the problem of this space, for anyone who's never heard about it, I'm just going to quickly recap what we're talking about. We're talking about excavators or loading implement that load material into a dump truck that goes and then dumps it in the cut, from the cut area to the fill areas, or if you're Canadian, from the load to the dump area, right? That work is extremely repetitive. There's one problem. Companies virtually every company earns between 5 to 10% margins on these projects. At least that's what they're aiming to earn. So 5 to 10% margin on projects is extremely, extremely small and lean. So if, for example, your estimation department estimated that the cycle time is the time it takes you to basically do one load and dump it. Yep. Let's say they estimate it to be 20 minutes. And, well, it's 21 minutes. Eric, do you think 1 minute matters?
Not for one load, but for load after load after load, yes.
Why? It's only 5%.
Well.
Oh, wait. Did I say 5% is the profit I'm earning? So do you want to tell me, Eric, that if my load time increased from 20 minutes to 21 minutes, I'm going to be doing this project for 6 months and going to be still in the red? Oh, no. Yeah. So that is the problem we aim to solve. And we didn't find any solution that solved it. So we started working with a couple of fairly large ENR listed construction companies. And we built a technology that basically tracks each one of these assets in real time with high frequency GPS trackers that are off the shelf. And that means you can install them for a fairly inexpensive price on every asset. Even if you're renting assets, you can put them on it. And then using data about the location of the asset type, the job site information, basically what's the cut and fill areas and the materials, we can generate for the first time in close to real time information such as load divided by material. And you can see it on the left. You guys seeing the video, I see the load counts here broken by topsoil and subsoil. Yep. I know from the load factor, the production volume, if we've got the price that I'm earning and I've got the charge rates, the project manager can in real time see the average profit they're turning. I can see my average cycle time, which is super important, and compare it to what it needs to be. And the couple of things that are the most exciting for me are CO2 is something that I don't think, Eric, have you ever recorded a podcast when someone talks about their carbon emissions?
Never. First time.
Is it not the very first thing that people talk about when they join the podcast?
Not the first thing, no.
Well, I agree. It's not. But change is coming. And the administration, for example, passed an executive order that will start to trickle down, requiring construction companies and certain projects to report the environmental impact. Mm-hmm. How can you measure the environmental impact of an earth-moving operation? So we took that as a task, and we, for example, can calculate in near real time, what is your CO2 efficiency? It's a new measure we're introducing, and we are starting to work with companies that are interested to make this a KPI that's reportable. And that basically measures how many pounds of CO2 are consumed for every yard of material or every cube. Okay, so you can measure. Imagine everyone knows what's miles per gallon. Well, miles per gallon equivalent in emissions is pound CO2 for every cube of material. So you can track that as well.
Right.
And why is that very interesting? Because the problem of companies when they have shifts like this is, in order to make money, you need to win every shift, every game. So obviously some companies use drones. I love drones. They look cool, but there's only slight problem. You fly them once or even twice a day. They basically tell you the result of the game. Okay. So if you play a football game, you'll know the result. When I'm saying result, I mean whether you hit production forecast or not.
No, I get it.
You have no idea why, though, right? So knowing if you won or lost the game, you can debrief, but you don't know why. We provided what we call the game tape. This is the game tape. You want to understand what's going on shift after shift and give specific information how to win every shift during the shift or every game during the game. You can use a system like ours. So we presented this at Built Worlds, which is a conference attended by the top ENR rated ranked companies, and Clue won the top award and competition for this solution. And we're now in the process of rolling it out with multiple companies that are interested in this.
Excellent. So you mentioned something here, and I think this is a very important idea, to win every shift. So give me 3 things that a construction company needs to focus on in order to win every shift from your experience, just working with contractors.
So not trying to dodge the question, I'll say that the answer is that is the problem. There is no one solution. I'll give examples for things we've seen.
Okay.
But every person in the construction industry, you guys, everyone's listening, you guys know what you're doing. You've been building America for the last, since it was called America, right?
Well, for Tykert, they've been doing it for over 100 years.
That's it, right? So if it was easy, people would do it. One has to assume that he's the smartest person in the world to think that, I got a solution that people 100 years before me couldn't solve out. And we're not. That's not how we operate.
Right.
Therefore, the problem is more specific. So after a company does what we said earlier, which is the preliminaries, collecting the data, standardizing, and so on, and then has a system to alert, you start to unveil things that some of them will be crazy common sense, but they're the solution. For example, and I hope you're really going to smile when you hear this. One of the companies we worked with, how did we actually enable them to unleash efficiencies right away? But just seeing that when shift was supposed to start at 7, everyone was actually on the job site at 7. For some reason, work always started only at 7:25. Why? Because some areas that are not in Southern California where we are, there's something called cold weather.
Right.
I never experienced it, but I hear that in Dakota it's colder than it is here. And if everyone comes in the job at 7 a.m. and they're only turning the machines 7 a.m., you sure as hell not going to start paving at 7 a.m., right?
Right.
So maybe, just maybe, we can have a solution that one person needs to come at 6:30 to turn on all the machines. And just through that act alone, you can improve efficiency. Now, how would you know about that? How would you know when is someone coming? When is the machine being turned on? Well, you need to have data that's accurate on a minute-by-minute level basis.
Right.
You also need to have some comparison to industries, which we offer as well. So we can check how efficient is our operation versus others and so on. So that will be one tidbit of an example.
Yeah.
Another really, really key thing we focus on is breakdowns. Most companies we ask them one question: how much money do you spend from your maintenance budget on breakdowns, on unplanned events versus planned maintenance, planned events? And often they have no clue. No pun intended. They have no clue.
Right.
Now, everyone can probably guess that if you have breakdowns, you're not going to be very efficient. So what we started to do is build a tool that's extremely easy for them to inspect the assets day after day after day after day and collect the information. And unsurprisingly, the number of breakdowns and unplanned events decreases exponentially as they start rolling it out. Okay, so that's another process. And I'm sure you can have folks that can speak just about the 15 different aspects of what equipment maintenance is for hours on end. But none of that is even useful. It is of no use to any company to pay millions of dollars for consultants if then the operators don't have any tool to implement that.
Right.
Okay. So I just wanted to give a couple of examples of that.
Sure.
Is how the improvements are unveiled day after in companies, and companies that use our platform end up reporting extremely high ROI. We had a case study published in the Construction Equipment magazine, published by their editor Rod Sutton, about one of these companies, and anyone can Google this later. Yeah, that's one of the examples of a very significant return on investment when companies go through the switch.
Now, do you have that so that we can put it in the show notes?
Yeah, happily. I'll share that with you.
So tell us, how can we get in touch with you?
Really simply, you need to visit us on our website, clue.com, getclue.com. We work, as I mentioned, with pretty much every construction company that owns or operates heavy construction equipment, whether they self-perform or if they're a larger GC, they have multiple projects where they're either a joint venture or they subcontract out, but it is highly important for them to ensure that the operation is done correctly and that they are able to monitor the productivity as well as the carbon emissions, for example, of their operations.
And so Clue sits between the telematics, the GPS, the enterprise system, and helps to consolidate and rationalize that information so it can be usable.
That's right. A one-stop shop, one pane of glass for that. And that pane of glass can be in your pocket. So what the operator sees will be different from what the mechanic and the shop manager would see, and it will be different from what the equipment manager sees and different from what the operations director needs to see.
Excellent. Okay.
So all on one system.
Excellent. So we're going to put a link in the show notes to getclue.com. Now, you shared with us that slide about empowering field crews with the data that they need. There's also a PDF that I have that we can put in the show notes that'll give people some more insights into what it is that you guys do, just so that they can get a brief overview of that.
Happily, and usually we jump on a fairly brief 20-minute call, learning more about the company and the challenge that they're seeing. Some companies identify their challenge. Yep. Some companies just feel we are left behind. Right. And the only thing, again, I truly, honestly, care less whether companies come to Clue and care more about just warning companies that this decade is the decade of whether or not you have data. If you don't have data, you're already behind. You know that. But what are you doing with the data? So whether you end up using Clue or you decide you want to build your own solution or find a different solution, make sure you have a system that provides you actionable, right now information of what to do. Actionable is not an email report that gets sent from the system and no one looks at. And if companies and owners or presidents listen to this, take a mirror, look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, are you as efficient as you can be? The systems you implemented so far, have they unleashed the productivity and the profitability improvements that you have? And if not, this is something worth working on. When we work with companies, we dropped the requirement for them, for example, to have a long-term, multi-year contract. Don't believe in that. Our aim is to help companies within every month to achieve return on investment. You should be able to date, I call it, the software company before you get married with it.
Right.
Okay. And dating means having something that you can test it and just test what it is. Do not take the word of Eric or Oded or any software company for granted. Find a way to implement it in an easily, fast manner, and then get the data.
Yep. I was really struck by what you said about the idea of zero implementation and then being able to put the information in and get it out. I think that's very powerful. Yeah. Now you're down in Southern California.
That's right. Our team is remote across the entire US. I just happen to be here.
Absolutely. So then I need a restaurant recommendation. What is your favorite restaurant? Do you live in SoCal?
Yeah, I live in SoCal.
Okay. So I'm visiting SoCal. What is the one restaurant I need to go to?
Wow.
I know I kind of blindsided you with that one.
That's fine. I will tell you. There's only, I'm going to be extremely boring.
Okay.
But the only restaurant we frequent in the family is a restaurant that's very good for our kids. We have 6-year-old and 5-year-olds.
Nice.
And we go to a local chain here called True Food.
True Food.
And I think it has something for everyone. I cannot believe you're the first person, Eric, that made me made a recommendation. But also to come very clean, I'd say that 99% of the Ran family budget goes on eating home.
Yep, eating home.
Eating at home quietly with your phone turned off, mindfully for a few minutes. So if you took anything out of this presentation, this podcast, it is the next time you eat your meal, leave your phone in the other room, have one meal mindfully. It'll change your life.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that recommendation there. We will put a link in the show notes for truefoodkitchen.com. So for those of you out there who have kids and you're in SoCal, you need to go hit that up. Yes. I really, really appreciate you taking the time. Make sure that we'll make sure we get all the links in the show notes. And I look forward to talking to you again. Thanks for joining us on Construction Genius.
Thank you, sir, for arranging this.
Awesome. Today's episode was brought to you by the Construction Conclave. If you as a construction leader would like to develop your skills and get involved in a community of like-minded construction professionals who are focused on building healthy teams, profitable projects, and long-term successful businesses, then the Construction Conclave is for you. It's a private invitation-only group of construction leaders that are focused on developing their leadership skills. We do training every single month online that looks at how to become a better leader in a very practical, straightforward way. We also have other events that build community and camaraderie so that you can associate with others who are interested in developing their skills as leaders. If you'd like more information and to see if you qualify for participating in the conclave, feel free to reach out to me, eric@ericanderton.com. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and thanks again for listening.